Welcome, survivors, burnout community, and those just interested. It's Kelly Bupoltz, trainer, author, speaker, and your burnout prevention mentor. Burnout is not taboo. It's our reality in this chaotic, fast-paced world. But we're not going to let it drive the narrative to our stories. We're going to do something about it. So let's dig in. The 12 phases of burnout is so important to understand because it's awareness of where you're at, where someone you know might be at in this chronic stress state. And when we get to phase 8, you're going to understand why these 12 phases are so important. Now, these phases have been around since the 1970s. Freudenberger and Gail North created these phases after observations of people in chronic stress states, and it still stands true today. So the first phase is pretty common in societal norms right now, and it's the compulsion to prove oneself. This is where you need to overdo it or be involved in multiple areas. Well, maybe your job is only this area. So it's very excessive dedication to your work, to the project, to the household, in which you're overdoing it, but you want to prove yourself that you can do it. So you become over-responsible. Now, the dangerous part in this phase 1 that I see just from a human resources professional and someone who leads teams is that if you are over-responsible, you are actually creating a lot of people around you that are under-responsible, which is going to feed the stress, feed the burnout. So phase 1 is compulsion to prove oneself. Phase 2 is working even harder. So taking on more and more responsibilities, being involved in even more things, more committees, more projects, more activities that your kids are doing, and pushing yourself beyond your limit. So it's interesting when you look at dual responsibilities, a working parent and a parent at home. And then you also have activities at work. You have activities at home, and you keep building on this. So you're working even more harder than the initial role that you went in to achieve. So phase 2 is working harder. Phase 3 is you start neglecting those personal needs because you are running around everywhere, because you're trying to be everything for everyone. You start neglecting personal needs. And this might be just skipping a lunch. I didn't eat yet today. This might be skipping sleep. So staying up too late working, staying up too late, preparing kid activities, staying up too late just to gain that personal time back that you've lost all day long because you've done non-purposeful or aligned work. So you're skipping out on sleep. You might even be skipping out on social activities that you used to enjoy, those groups that you used to be part in, the friends you used to see and enjoy, the family you used to travel out to. You start neglecting these things because life gets busy, right? That's the common saying that we hear. And then you also, because you're neglecting meals, you're neglecting sleep, you're going to naturally neglect self-care activities such as exercise or movement, such as that peaceful space that you used to have where you would watch the sunrise and drink your coffee. You start neglecting those really important resets, micro resets, because life has taken over everywhere else. And next quarter, I'll have time to breathe, or next year, I'll have time to breathe. That's chronic stress because that's a very long period of time. Now, phase 4, I see often in conversations with people, and I don't think they realize where they're at in these phases of burnout. And the phase 4 is going over displacement of conflict. So this means that you're actually ignoring the conflicts in your own life and denying the stress, and you're blaming external factors. And you're looking at other people's lives and talking about them, that drama, that gossip that we like to tune into or even spew out. You're displacing your own conflicts and living through other people's lives. You're pushing that blame out. You're living in someone else's life because your life is a mess. So you're kind of ignoring and denying the stress in your own world. And this is where it starts to amp up. This is where some of the symptoms start to get bigger in the physical, cognitive, emotional, and relationship categories. Is when you start to displace conflict, that means the conflict at home is escalating. It's growing into this monster. So phase 4 is an important one to be aware of when you start displacing your conflict elsewhere or being too involved in everyone else's conflict that you're not taking care of your own back at home. Phase 5 is revision of values. So values are at that core, right? They're in your core of how you operate, how you make decisions of path A or B, right or wrong. These are the things that naturally when you go home to, you feel aligned and right in that space. So in phase 5, you actually start revising these values. You start prioritizing work over these relationships. You start doing activities misaligned over the hobbies that were aligned with where your energy was at. And you might even deviate from those personal values, making decisions that you never would have when you had that core home. So revisions of values is phase 5. Phase 6 is denial of emerging problems. So this kind of goes similar to the displacement of conflicts, but you're now becoming more impatient. You don't want to take the time to solve or have a conversation of healthy conflict. You don't want to mend the relationship. You're denying these emerging problems by just blowing them off, right? You're working through them too fast. You're ignoring them completely, like complete ignorance of the situation. You might be becoming cynical. You are being irritable. So this is a lot of the relationship category of burnout. And then you're avoiding any reflection of your own actions. So you're not taking accountability for your take on it. You're pushing this so outward that you are no longer taking responsibility for your own actions. So denial of this emerging problems. Phase 7, right? We're getting into the darkness now of chronic stress of burnout. Phase 7 is withdrawal. So this is when you begin to isolate socially and not in a growth way. It's okay to back up for a while and work on yourself. You're not doing that. You're doom scrolling at night. You're binge watching Netflix. You're doing things that, again, don't align with your values, and you're just checking out. So social isolation. And then you're starting to lose interest in enjoyable activities, things that you used to enjoy. It doesn't bring you joy anymore. And it's not because it's more work. It's not because the activity has shifted. It's because of you, that you have started this behavior of detachment. So this withdrawal one's kind of scary, and you'll see when people are really stressed in meetings, they kind of start to withdraw. They have their cameras off, they're showing up late, they don't have the materials, or they're not participating in the chitter chatter or the discussion anymore. So withdrawal. Now phase 8, and this is a big one, like I said in the beginning, phase 8 is others are starting to observe behavioral changes in you. I want to repeat that. Others are observing behavioral changes in you. So that means there's changes in your personality. Maybe you were bubbly and now you're not. Maybe you were quiet and now you're blurting out at people because you're so irritated, because you're not taking care of yourself, because you're not doing anything you enjoy anymore, right? You're just bursting out at people. You're going to have this increased irritability. So maybe you were patient with people. You could work through things, and now you're just snapping at them. You're kicking them out of the office. You're blowing them off. That was a big hitter in mine. I should have seen the signs, but I didn't. I was so overwhelmed in human resources. People were still coming to me with things. And because I was over involved in everything, I started to snap at people. I was definitely more of a compassionate person before burnout. And in burnout, I wasn't so much anymore. And then you might even get more aggressive in your approach. And it could be physical, or it could just be verbally. It could be how you write emails. You were coming off very aggressive and direct. Not a nice person. So phase 8, when others are observing these behavioral changes, is the number one phase that comes out when I do burnout programs, when I do workforce energy management programs. When we get to phase 8, that's the place that most people can relate to right now. That's a lot. You have went through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and you were at phase 8. There's only a few more left before burnout collapse. And phase 8 is the most common that I'm seeing in organizations. So I want to just really highlight, when you are seeing behavioral changes in people, it is not in a good place. We have some work to do. Now let's go through the other ones. This is pretty much where you begin the burnout collapse. 9 is depersonalization. So you're going to start to feel disconnected from the tasks that you're doing, disconnected from the relationships that you're in, disconnected from the days. Like you wake up and you're just like blah, zombie mode, repeat, blah, zombie mode. Like there's no point in getting up. You're so disconnected from your days. You are seeing people and tasks as obstacles rather than individuals and forward-moving initiatives. So it's another thing you have to do. Why do I have to do other things? Talking to people, no thanks. I don't want to do that today. And it's because your body's moving in survivorship mode. Your body's moving in survivorship mode, trying to keep your core organs running so you can stay alive. It doesn't want to meet new people. It doesn't want to do Excel sheets. It doesn't want to go to work and take care of people. So this depersonalization is starting to see people as that obstacle, as a hurdle, than individuals providing value and possibly can even support you. Number 10 is inner emptiness. So if you have disconnected from your values, you're no longer doing things that you enjoy, you're not taking care of yourself anymore, you have this withdrawal, so you have that misconnection now, and then you have these behavioral shifts that are happening. You don't see people as value. Now you go into inner emptiness. And this is a scary state. This is where you start to feel numb. This is that moment of, I don't care if I go to work or not go to work, right? Now you're showing up to your shift like right before you're going to get in trouble versus being the first one there a couple of years ago. You're moseying into your household where you used to be excited to see the kids or your partner, and now you just don't care, right? This numbness. This is a scary state to be in, this inner emptiness, phase 10. And you might even be resorting at this point, because you want to numb out. You might be resorting to unhealthy coping mechanism. This is where people start drinking a lot more alcohol. This is where you might be resorting to porn or sexual addiction just to get like some kind of high. You might be overeating, right? So this is all the processed food and the desserts and all the things that you like to indulge in. You went from moderation to like, I need it every night. And I used to go at lunch to McDonald's across the street, and I would get a hot fudge sundae and salty fries, and I would sit in the parking lot and dip those salty fries into the hot fudge sundae like a cigarette. And just for a moment of time, I would feel so good. And that was my inner emptiness. I was so numb, and that was the only thing that I enjoyed in my day. And obviously with someone who's having digestive failure from my physical collapse, it wasn't a good meal to be having when I was under chronic stress. So this inner emptiness is a very scary state to be in, which leads you to phase 11, and that's depression. And this is, you have to remember your body is changing because it's in survivorship mode. It's just focused on the core organs. So the hormonal rhythms that maybe used to get you up in the day, help you sleep, get you energy, those are all dysfunctional. So depression is creeping in, and it doesn't mean that you permanently have depression, but the state your body is in and how the hormonal rhythms and chemicals are flowing, it's going to cause depression. And that's where you're just experiencing deep emotional exhaustion, like complete fatigue every day, regardless of what you do. Anything that comes your way is 100% overwhelm. Like you can't process things. You can't decide anything. I remember standing in front of my closet after a shower and just not even knowing how to get dressed. Like I would just be staring at my clothes and not know like shirts, pants, socks. I'm just sitting there just overwhelmed and exhausted. Like I can't do this. And that was my form of depression. Everyone has their different forms of depression. And it's this hopelessness state. You're just completely lost. Like you've tried things, you don't know a sense of direction anymore. You don't know the next step. Everyone's a threat to you. You're distrusting everyone. So this depression starts creeping in. That's phase 11. Now, phase 12 is the collapse. This is burnout syndrome. This is where you will either have a mental, physical collapse or both. I'm forever thankful that I had the physical collapse because I was able to repair most of my body. I do have permanent damage, but I was able to repair most of my body. If you have the mental collapse and you are not in the right environment, your only options is to reset in a facility or you unalive yourself. So it's a very scary place to be when we get to phase 12. Now, remember, I said that a majority of people that I talk to in these burnout programs are already in phase 8. That's not too far from phase 12. And that's the scary statistic that I wanted to point out is people are worse than you think and we're covering it up. Or it's socially normal to just be in this mental health state. It's not normal. And when you get to this phase 12, physically, people can repair themselves if they get the right help. But mentally, it is a much longer journey to dig yourself out. It will require medical or psychological intervention at this point. And that means you're definitely not going to work. You're definitely not taking care of things at home. Things are going to get much worse. So we don't want it to get to that state. And out of these 12 phases, it all started with compulsion to prove oneself. and then working harder. And you have to remember social norms are rewarding that. They're rewarding the hustle. They're rewarding the going above and beyond. So we're already kicking off the first 2 phases of this burnout, of this chronic stress, by just being in this culture. And being aware of these 12 phases will help not only you recognize when you need to step back, when you need to reset, do a nice lifestyle reset, but also those around you. Because if you're observing those behaviors of others changing, of their personalities changing, of them no longer doing things that they love or value, they're already in phase 8 of 12. By taking these 12 phases, you can begin the conversation and begin to shift activities and actions away from this chronic stress, away from burnout, and back to energy. I know you're not lazy. Most people in burnout are high performers, those serving others before themselves. Don't discount this step today, the action in which you focus on your self-growth. Piecing together the puzzle is half the journey. Rediscovering yourself, energy, and establishing new habits is the other. Do not underestimate the untapped inner strength inside you. Explore more resources on my website to move from zombie mode back to liveliness. See you soon.